maybe one of the most important paradigm shifts in adolescent development and education in like the last 100 years. As a child, I could not sit still. I wish that one of my educators identify what I was going through and what I was feeling, rather than focused on how I was behaving. We've been immersing ourselves in this social and emotional learning journey, and we've learned a lot. We've really connected the dots between an activity that's a combination of arts and fitness, and really made it appealers. You know, we want to teach the kids that we work with at a very young age to understand the validating demonstration of executive function, of self-regulating, about staying calm in the eye of the storm. And it's a quick snapshot of what it is we're doing. It's Monday. Probably about 50% of these kids are trying flying trapeze for the first time this morning. From the ground, it doesn't always look that high. But once you get up there, everything that you learned in your lesson, it's about remembering that there are people in positions to support, encourage, and remind you along the way. That's where you guys fit in their everyday lives. And that's the reminder that we're trying to give these children who's in the community, is working with kids to help them be able to build the confidence and the executive function skills that we all need and have developed us. Our goal is to be able to serve the wider community, specifically those who may not have access to opportunities like this given the cost. And so our new nonprofit on September 7th, it's called Adventure Minds. Its focus is advancing core competencies of social and emotional learning by providing experiences centered around movement, parkour, and applications like parkour, flying trapeze, acrobatics, and things like community-driven art projects and things like that. But I just did a lot of talking and haven't. They ran the largest recreational circus program in the world at Frenchwood's Camp. And so what I'm hoping that if you guys have an opportunity to chat with them, that you can hear what some of the short-term, medium-term, and long-term impacts that both the activity has made.
My name is Denny Lennon. My current positions are I'm the National Director of AAU Beach Volleyball. And so we run the national championship and come up on our beaches. That said, I was a longtime educator, and by educator I mean athletic director, and I realize they sometimes live in a different area of the school. That said, as athletic director at schools in Los Angeles, including the Archer School for Girls, I also helped Harvard Westlake run programs and worked at a few Catholic schools. Okay, that's out of the way. Now, a parenting coach, a consultant, and a trainer, Judy Ostenhage. Principal at Monroe Elementary School, Brian Naughton. A principal at Washington Elementary School, Arielle Curry. And a circus Yoda, hailing from New York by way of New Zealand. Please welcome Mike Baker.
Arielle Curry, I'm the principal at Washington Elementary School. I'm really excited to be here today to share more about what we do in our schools related to social emotional learning. It's something that I'm personally just passionate about, including the climate and culture in our school where all kids feel safe, seen, and valued, and the adults as well. So hope to share some nice pearls of wisdom about how we do the good work in our schools to support kids. But in response to the question about just building the emotional awareness of our kids, I think the most important thing is just normalizing communicating your feelings and creating those conditions for kids to do that freely in a safe space. We've done a lot of work recently in our schools with teaching kids that, from utilizing different tools for them to rate how they're feeling, zones of regulation, are you in the red, the yellow, or the green, and naming those feelings that are attached to that, but also social and emotional learning curriculum that teaches them the strategies of, okay, what can I do when I feel this way, and being okay with being in that space and working through it so they can get to a place where they're regulated and available to learn. I think one of the biggest things, though, that's so important is teaching kids not only to advocate for themselves and their needs and be okay with speaking up, but to understand how their feelings have impact on other people and the kids around them. And if they understand that impact, that's not only going to help them adjust their behavior so it doesn't affect others in a detrimental way, but also teach them empathy and helping other kids understand that, you know, if they're having a hard day, this is what I can do to support you and build that community. So just making it normalized, and, you know, if anything in education and school, we got to teach kids explicitly how to do all of these different skills, but just making it a space where kids feel comfortable and safe in order to do that. We're really going to build some resilient adults as they progress through our schools and go out to our broader community.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Like my colleague Arielle said, and like a lot of our principals out there know as well too, you know, students come to us every day with a lot of needs, and you know, I was thinking about this over the last few days. You know, we had, you know, obviously the fires several years ago, followed by floods, and then followed by COVID. You know, and all of that had a large impact on our students and our staff and our community. So, you know, we've been grappling with this, you know, coming back, you know, and it's still happening. So for us at school to provide opportunities for students to be able to regulate or manage their emotions, to identify, is very important in the work that we do, because if they're unable to at least identify and regulate, they're not going to be able to achieve success. So it's a big part of what we do in our school programming right now. Academics is, of course, our ground game, but the social emotional world is much more coupled with that success as well. So it's a big part of what we do. It helps kids manage their conflict resolution, among other things, and you know, we have a variety of tools, as Arielle suggested and shared with you. Having kids identify by using I feel statements. We go around to role playing during the school year to demonstrate what it feels or what it looks like to empathize or be compassionate. So a lot of those things happen in the beginning of the year, and then we routinely emphasize them throughout the school year. So that's what we do.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
With social, emotional, and self-regulation, etc., we got a problem in California. 3 times the amount of preschoolers are expelled than K through 12 combined. And that's the statistic right now of how many kids are struggling with self-regulation and self-control. We have the perfect storm, but we had COVID, and we had to have the iPads and the phones. And our kids' regulation is being compromised in the early years. And for me, I think I take the approach to start with the parents and help the parents and build that structure up, the family structure, and then, you know, partnering with schools so they can help the kids. But if the parents aren't regulated, the parents aren't there, the parents are on their own phone, those kids aren't going to feel safe, they're not going to feel secure, and they're not going to develop the skills they need. So, you know, right now, to have that level of kids being expelled out of preschool, we need some support at a preschool level. For preschool, it is 12 units to become a preschool teacher. That's 1 semester. We need to support our preschool teachers. We need to train them, and we need to come alongside our parents. That's what I'm really passionate about. Thank you.
And being able to communicate the feelings, being able to trust what they're feeling in their body, and then being able to communicate it to others, and trusting that their feelings will be heard, and that they also have the opportunity to have those feelings. Those feelings could be real, but they get to choose how to respond to those feelings, as opposed to reacting to those feelings. At the trapeze, we see the kids coming up, they experience real fear in their body. We talk with them about taking deep breaths, regulating themselves, and then staying engaged and moving through that experience. And then on the other side of that is a sense of competence or confidence that is unmatched. It's on the somatic level that the kids are feeling.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We'll close on this question, then we'll go to a question and answer session. But it's the Circus Yoda's turn.
Randy and Chris and Shane, as we have being here before you now. Or at least starting them on their journey. They were always going to find their way. So some of the vocab and terminology around social emotional learning is very new to me. In fact, I think the first time I heard the terminology behind it was talking to Randy. The concept, though, is something that we probably struggled to articulate over the years. We've always recognised that there was benefits in empowering these young people to put them in uncomfortable situations and move forward. So as to some of the tools, I think that's what we're supposed to be talking about. One of the things that I don't think you guys touched on yet is something that we have a hard time in New Zealand with, is the stigma behind talking about mental health and your emotions, especially in young adolescent males. So having a safe space, a safe person, a role model, whether that's a teacher, an educator, a coach, another family member, someone to be able to listen and not judge. I think that's a huge part of how we move forward from here. Then touching on what Shane said, the being able to communicate, being able to recognize and label and identify how they're feeling without getting too carried away. That's what I got. So.
Very good.
I spoke to this in my original response, thinking about the idea of empathy and kids really just understanding how their actions impact others. And I think a lot about like conflict resolution, what Brian was sharing earlier in his response too, and how like kids oftentimes are really impulsive when they're younger, and teach them to take a minute to pause and reflect on how they're feeling before they take that next step. So I think it's just really important for kids to be mindful of that. And I think the more that we support them with understanding feelings and how to appropriately engage in those conversations in a healthy way that's going to help resolve the issue will help mitigate some of those issues. So again, it's empathy, it's giving kids the strategies to process through those situations in a way that is that'll support healthy communication and actually resolve an issue. So that's where my it's just how can we support kids with that conflict resolution piece.
We have a lot of teams. We spend a lot of time looking more at our qualitative data, talking to kids, having really deep conversations with them about what a potential conflict is, and then looking at that data and saying, okay, here's what we need to do to adjust our system to those kinds of needs. And in elementary schools, it's pretty typical for the most part. You have very structured classrooms where there's very strong classroom management procedures, whatever you want to call them, that are happening consistently. But once the students go out to the playground area, that's where we see most of our conflicts happen. So it's really about addressing some of those things that we're seeing based on our data, and then trying to adjust our system to meet those needs, which is typically conflict resolution and relationships. Those are the two biggest things that we see.
They know how to help their kids develop self-regulation and self-control and emotional control, and what they can do, being consistent when they say no and the kid has a fit, okay, here, right there, you're developing that cycle of tantrums, etc. Having parents have that knowledge to help their kids, but I need to be consistent. I need to use words that are consistent with helping them identify their emotions. I need to have them wait 5 minutes if I'm cooking dinner. I don't need to give them a cookie while I'm waiting. All these things, delayed gratification, that emotional control, that self-regulation, all are directly related to school success, especially delayed gratification. And our kids don't have that. They get a camera or a phone, they get an iPad. A lot of things we're doing are compromising our kids' development of that. And then we send them to school and we see them out on the playground where they're struggling. So again, what can we do specifically to help them get those skills, to support them in those skills, and help the parents? So when they get to school, they don't have to worry about a lot of that behaviors. The teachers aren't having to worry about a lot of those behaviors. They get to go to school successfully. So that's my take.
Never easy to judge.
When they're coming to camp, we have 45 the last 2 weeks. We're getting to see the kids practice that in real time, and getting to see how that plays out in their different emotional states. That if a kid is upset or overwhelmed, we can go and talk with them, find out how they're feeling, and then ask them what they need, or have them ask for what they need. And then if they need to have a break for 5 minutes, they can do that. Or even up on the platform, there was a young girl today who got up there and she couldn't do it. She said, I can't do it, I can't do it. We tried and tried and tried. And she said to us, I was at a trampoline park and I flew off and I got hurt. and I'm really scared that's going to happen again. Her having the awareness to be able to share that, and then us receive it, and then we're like, okay, we're going to go back down, and let her relax.
To more empathetic culture, where we understand each other a lot more. I think we can all agree that post-COVID, we're probably not listening to each other as much as we could. We can find conflicts anywhere we will. So helping our people understand the tools, recognize their emotions, and find their way forward will lead to better decision making and culturally get us into a better position. We were very lucky, my wife Roman and I, we used to teach at a refugee centre in Auckland. There was people from many different cultures, Rwandans, Eritreans, Pacific Islanders, and there was very significant cultural differences which would cause conflict. For example, the Polynesian kids, the Samoans, would be very quiet and respectful and gather away from the other.
What do you see as the parallels or the connections between what you all do in schools who are educators, including parent educators, and the work that's done at Santa Barbara Trapeze Company?
Contacted Brandy when I recognized, because I train a lot of trauma, do a lot of trauma training for parents, and what I recognize is that there's that level, and Brandy, I think you addressed it, or Randy did, that adrenaline. When you have adrenaline, and it's good adrenaline, and you have someone with them, that is the connection that you can make, that we can help our kids start to heal and start to connect. They don't often connect with their foster parents right away. That's that connection. And so it's almost like an example, if you're going river rafting and you don't really know the people and you're all like, you don't want to text them, and by the end you're like, let's go get beer, this is the best time. That adrenaline helped you bond. And so using that information and using what we know about the trapeze, what can we do for these families to help them get that adrenaline and bond in a real way? So that was my take.
Kids need support teams. And so, SBTA, you guys provide that support team for them. Teaching the logistics on how to climb and how to do it and all that, and the emotional side is there now too. And that's what drew me to you guys, is we found that common theme, and that we have a team to support every child too. So we build support teams to provide that social emotional identification, awareness, regulation, etc. And so it's SBTA.
Do you find some of the same challenges, Arielle?
Yeah, and one of the connections that I see between the work that we do in the schools and what St. Barbara Trapeze does, and I got to experience it as a parent, because my daughters did camp and birthday parties, and just watch the progression of kids building their confidence, and having that shared experience where you're going through this struggle together and working together in a team, like it's a beautiful progression to watch them. Okay, I'm scared to go up this ladder, and your team's like, you got it. It's like, okay, no, it's my turn, I got your back, and it's helping them. They're realizing that even though that's a hard experience, like I know how it was for me to support you and just building that community and teamwork, and I feel like the more experiences we provide kids with that in a real world way, that'll help them apply into activities stuff like on the playground, like, okay, man, you got bummed that you lost this shot in the basketball game. Well, let me teach you my tricks, right? Like I understand the struggle, and that's something that I always try to explain to kids too when we have conflict on the playground. Is like, you may be good at this activity, but other students not. So rather than like, insulting them or being rude and being a poor sport, like teach them what you did and work through that struggle together. So again, just kind of building those experiences where they can learn to work together. It's really powerful.
Those positive repetitions are important.
We use trapeze as a tool and parkour as a tool for kids to, in a sense, be out in the wild, and they're not just sitting in the classroom being quiet. They're out. It's experiential learning. We're having them, putting them in an elevated state of excitement, of adrenaline, of fear, and also, as Arielle was saying, them cheering each other on. It's a shared vulnerability that we're offering. Hey, we're going to do this experience together, like the whitewater rafting, I don't really know you or whatever. And then we're doing it, only one person doing it at one time, and we're all watching them and cheering them on. And then when they come down, I go up and I get to go up there and be vulnerable and experience that. And then when I come down, everyone's cheering me on as well. So it allows the kids to be having fun, doing something different, being in a novel situation or out of their comfort zone, and feeling supported by others around them, and then also getting to give that support. They're practicing empathy in that sense, and then it builds a really strong sense of camaraderie.
Can I pick up on that one as well?
Yeah, of course.
Just real quick. And it's exactly what Chin's talked about, but I just want to talk about sometimes that social hierarchy. Kids who may not be that athletic or that popular in school, or whatever, it takes away that that ladder that they're all on. They're all equal again. The empathy has come through. That sort of thing. So those kids who are probably the ones who are getting picked on or whatever aren't being placed in that environment in the first place. They all come to the unstructured time as equals.
And I'm the creator of Autonomy Social Emotional Learning Program for teens,
Okay.
adolescents, and young adults. But I'm curious, so the skills or the feelings that the kids get when they're up in the air having an experience that is totally out of their comfort zone, how do you coach those skills, and what have you seen? How do those skills generalize to perhaps the family or to the school environment? Have you seen those kids come back, and how have they transformed in a way that you can actually quantify if they can?
We get to see that over and over and over. There was a young girl who flies with us, and her mom had shared with me, hey, she's going through some anxiety. She was just diagnosed with some anxiety issues. And I first thought, oh, okay, we'll take it easy, and we won't push her too hard. And then I said to her, actually, do you want to learn a new trick? And I pushed her in a healthy way to this next level. And she was nervous, but then did it and was totally over the moon. That was the last week of the session, 8-week session. She was not going to do the next session. And then after that experience, she was lit up and came back and was totally engaged. And I think we're offering, in a sense, an antidote to anxiety is by giving them an opportunity to voluntarily approach something they're afraid of, voluntarily feel good anxiety in an elevated state, and then that passes on for other experiences in their regular life. When you feel fear on the trapeze, that feeling that you feel in your body somatically, when you go to a job interview or ask someone to dance or something like that, the same fear comes up. And we get to allow them to practice. It's like going to the gym for emotional resilience. Is by going on the trapeze over and over and over. And as soon as they feel comfortable doing the knee hang or something you saw the kids doing, we level up and level up so we can keep engaging them in that way and challenging them. And that sense of confidence is within them. You can't give that to somebody or buy that for them. They have to earn it. And we give them the opportunity to earn it.
We need those repetitions, positive repetitions.
My question is in regards to, you mentioned the parent-school connection, because we are a partnership, parent-school community. And does this program offer any support classes for parents who are dealing with the fact that they aren't adept at regulating their children, don't feel that they can tell their children no? Is there any support for the parents, any classes or anything connected with this program?
So I hope you're...
When I watch, what I notice is there's rarely a conflict with the kids. They're intent, they're listening. And the one experience I had, I was just in tears, is one little girl ran off and she looked for her mom and she ran off and hugged her. And the mom had tears in her eyes. She goes, she never wants to hug me. So that was that connection. It was just so precious.
Both you and Michael, Shane, have received a ton of sort of feedback from some of the different groups that we've worked with over the years, and that we don't think that we're a solution to every problem, but we're a unique tool in your toolkit when other things haven't worked. I was just talking to Nancy about some of the partnerships that we've done with the kids at COM or the kids at Costa Pacifica or the girls that come down from Olive Crest, who are obviously in very difficult situations, right? And so Michael and yourself, like, you've worked with kids who had challenging upbringings or needed that sense of, connection with an adult who could push you out of your comfort zone and help you generate that grit and resilience, where the parents sometimes feel like if they push you too hard, they might end up being the parent that you resent, right? And so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about how we show up as the tool for the parents that helps them push their kids towards grit and resilience and teaching them the skills of fall down and get back up, and maybe a couple of the outcomes, because I know we have a ton, but I think everyone would really like to hear that kind of thing.
I knew Randy as a very fiery 12-year-old who was looking for a pathway forward, and he managed to stumble across the service department where I was working, and he also got mentorship from two very close friends of ours, one of the dance instructors there and one of the waterfront instructors there. And so, like Randy said, tools in the toolkit, they're positive role models. We were really lucky in the fact that Randy got to experience things, got to get the adrenaline, got to learn, got to just try and push himself as much as possible, and we were there to support him along the way, not necessarily realizing that that would foster the long-term relationships or the emotional growth that came with it. It was more about helping this kid get better on the trapeze. And so since then, I've developed close relationships with Randy's parents, and they've turned to me when he's maybe not listening or misbehaving in certain ways. And so for us, it was always about the relationships. The tool that we have just makes it more exciting for those kids to be a part of. That's my take.
I think we have time for one more question.
I work at Dos Pueblos High School as a Council and Activities Director. I'm just curious as to your feedback from what you're seeing in the media right now, especially with the Olympics, and how the Olympics have handled the Simone Biles issue, and whether or not that has been helpful or harmful as far as like how they're hearing. I've had a lot of conversations with my friends about how successful she's been as being more unrealistic than realistic to that. I'm just wondering if you've been able to use it to your advantage, if you used it at all, have you kind of like spoken about that at all with the kids?
And
Both in their professional and personal lives. How are these challenges?
On this, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. But there's a lot of challenges that face educators, especially in this post-pandemic world we're in. They're having to carry this really heavy burden of not only providing education, but holding that social emotional space for kids and for caregivers and for families. And oftentimes, teachers are the safe person in the room, and so they're going and they're providing the safe container for kids, and they're having to hold a lot of space, and that gets just very emotionally heavy. So I think that's one of the biggest burdens outside of all of their regular demands that they're having the pressure of. In addition, a lot of times when kids are facing challenges emotionally or socially, that comes out in this very difficult, challenging behavior. So on top of this heaviness of emotions, teachers are also having to navigate these challenging behaviors, and all of that becomes very part of the whole. So burnout and stress is really high in the schools.
In the formal sense, but in the corporate world and the educational world, it seems like there's a lot of overlap in terms of the challenges that people face. I think a lot of times when we're thinking about our culture as a community, as a classroom, as an office, I think that we forget that the culture that we immerse in is the sum of everyone's emotional intelligence, and that holistic wellness really plays a big part of that. I know that in tech companies, regardless of the size that I was at, that teams have a shared goal of ultimately serving the customer and making the customer happy, creating value. I know that Michael and Ronald were just at the summer camp stepping in as consultants for the last 6 weeks, and they had a bunch of sort of junior-ish staff that they were trying to develop and bring along the way. And these young kids don't realize that where they're working in the project or in the business instead of on it, that they have a shared goal, which is ultimately serving value to the kids in the classroom, and that a lot of times when that's not reinforced from the very beginning, we end up being at odds with each other and operating in a scarcity mindset rather than an abundance mindset. And that if we create friendships and cohesivity between different teams and the teams and their customers, those stronger relationships make us feel better about how we show up to work. It makes us feel better that we feel seen, supported, encouraged, and taken care of by the people around us. And so it seems like sometimes with all of the pressure of having to take care of the kids, we deal with it too at the Trapeze, that it can feel overwhelming at times, and we really do our best, and it's always going to be an ongoing struggle to make sure that we remember at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that class felt good for them. And if it feels good for them, if we're solving the challenge of making a learning experience feel good for the people who are intended to receive the benefit from it, that we should go home feeling better about ourselves and feeling less stress.
Thank you. Grant?
Anecdotally, I retired several years ago, and in the last year of my career as an educator, I had to act as if. Talk about that in recovery. Just act as if until you get there. And I would do this thing where I would swing my legs out of bed, put my feet on the ground, and go, showtime! And I had to do that because I lost the joy and the passion for working, and definitely it was burnout. And I know there are a lot of other people, because the world is I don't think it's it's just a difficult place. And in other times in history, folks have gone through things more difficult, but we know this right now, and it is difficult. And so, for teachers and for leaders, administrators, etc., it is that, where's the joy? And it always has to be showtime. There's such a small margin of error because everyone's watching you. So a teacher shows up and it's showtime, and you got a room full of kids, and hopefully only a couple of them are dysregulated at any given time. And so I think it's that pressure of having to be on so much of the day and having to ignore your own well-being.
It's show.
Listen to your team. I mean, that's all noise, right? And I think my experience when I was a corporate salesman traveling across the country, sometimes 2 days a week, back and forth New York to San Francisco, was that I wasn't taking care of myself first, and that culture comes down from the top. That if you're not giving yourself the love that you need, or going, honestly, I'm just going to say, I went to therapy for a couple of years, and at one point I was going 2 days a week, not because of unchecked trauma, but because I felt alone and isolated, like I was living in a silo. And that, for those of us, and I know that you guys can relate to this, because you have a very challenging job with needs that are rapidly evolving and sometimes getting worse and worse. A lot of these crises that are hitting close to home right now, I give you a lot of credit for being able to shut off from your workday and be able to check out and be with your families. You guys are legitimate heroes. So the way that I had to take care of myself when I had a team of 12 reporting to me was I had to go do that emotional exercise and really be able to process why I was feeling so much pressure, or why I felt like I wasn't able to make time for myself. And I think that's a really important way to create that culture amongst your teams, is to do it for yourself first.
Frank, can you answer that same question? How can school leaders effectively recognize
School leaders on the ins and outs of being a school administrator are plentiful. There aren't a lot of coaches out there, the coach I needed. I want to be the person that I needed, that person who's going to help me work through the stress. And what I've really come to realize is that the stress I cannot control. I mean, I can do backflips all over the place and move things around, but I can't control the stress that comes my way. I cannot control a global pandemic or fires and floods and all those things. And nasty parents, that happens, right? And it sounds simple, but I can control my response to the stress and what I do with the stress. And so it's about how do I cope? And so how am I eating? I call that phase where I look at the stress. It's like the evaluation phase of like, am I going to cope with 3 cocktails, or am I going to go call a friend and take a walk, right? And so I think that's what, not just educators, but all adults, then you can be resilient and thrive in the face of whatever comes your way. And I think educators really need that more than almost any other.
They do. Cassie?
To show up, and I think so often educators are having to show up and be on and give so much of themselves, and so to be able to have space to reflect, get curious, take care of themselves is such a precious commodity in the day. And I feel so privileged in the program that I get to manage at home. We get to go into schools and we get to provide reflective space for teachers to how are you taking care of yourself? What are some strategies we can give you for the classroom? How can we support you in supporting these students? And we really do get to step back from working individually with the kids to working with the adults that are working with the kids so that they also have someone there for them. Kids have people there for them oftentimes, but the adults that work with kids don't have that person there for them. So I feel lucky to get to go and provide that space to educators, and not just to teachers, but to administrators, to leaders at the school too. Leadership can be so lonely, and so if it doesn't start at the top with the leadership in a space where they can get vulnerable and reflect and figure out how to combat burnout and compassion fatigue and all of the things that are taxing our education system. If that doesn't exist at the top, it's so hard for it to trickle down.
And it's vital.
To say that in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I was an emotionally charged individual is kind of an understatement. But he taught me something using this framework called EOS, which allows a leader to basically ask their team, what are the things that are getting in the way of you doing your job? And like they're supposed to say just like 3 or 4 words, not getting to a whole sentence about it. And then before you dive into everything, you label everything by priority, like in order, and you try to get through as much as you can during the meeting based on what the people told you is their experience. And what you often find is that the challenges that Cassie's facing in the workforce are the same that Brand's dealing with. And then you go, oh, wait a minute, this is a shared experience. And now all of a sudden, those 2 members of the team, who are usually set up to be at odds with each other, not by intent, but just by the way that our system is designed, go, wait a minute, this problem isn't unique to me. And if a problem isn't unique to you, then it's not a people problem. It's not a you problem. It's a process problem. And sometimes we're just not given the opportunity to be able to separate, is this somebody getting in the way of my happiness? Or can we work together through a really effective leader who's going to like block and tackle for you along the way, and like, you know, make your operation even that much smoother. And so it's called EOS framework. It's really awesome. And yeah, this is a kind of a really cool lesson for me. Like, don't react. It's your choice how you react to things. And sometimes it just takes a mentor, a coach, to be like, you're really upset. I'm not going to tell you not to be, but that's your choice. And I think as adults, we tell the kids that. We tell them that all the time. It's your choice whether you want to push through the week, but we got to do that for ourselves too.
Thank you.
On in your body with reactions, and those in the room who've worked with me know that I can be very calm and this, and I can also be very fiery. So when I get to fiery, what's going on? And so it is that pause. However, we're set up, at least in the public school system, there's so much pressure and so many demands. Like we had the folks who had to leave to go to a meeting, and they kind of squeezed this in between, and part of that's because that's just how life is. But it's like, how do you not build in the time, but take the time, whether it's built in or not, to do the most important thing. A book I read a number of years ago, several times, the idea was that we protect the asset. To have a successful business or successful leadership, you have to protect the asset. I'm the asset. Like, as leaders, if we go down, it's not a good thing for the entire team. And there is I do believe all of this cascades down. If a teacher is dysregulated, what's going to happen in that classroom? You can be teaching SEL all day long, and those kids will sniff it out if it's not genuine. I think also for leaders, so it is really, it's about developing that way to figure out what's going on and then make conscious decisions and be supported in moving forward with those conscious decisions to take the healthier route.
Thank you.
All the pipes and the wrenches and things are their trade, are the tools of their trade. But you as the educator, you are the tool. You are that person in the room that's holding space. You're using your own ability to regulate, to co-regulate with others. You're holding that environment. And so you have to also sharpen that tool, and you have to pay attention to it. And you have to make that choice to pay attention to it. It's so easy to keep giving and giving and giving until you drain your whole self, and to step back and to realize that you also deserve this and need it to be an effective leader or teacher or whoever in the classroom. And so having that space to reflect on that, having community that comes together and see, okay, this is a challenge that we're all facing. How do we come together? How do we connect with each other? It's kind of funny to say, but teaching that kind of work can be so isolating because you are in a classroom by yourself. You're not having this thing where you're having coworkers, you're interacting with multiple moments throughout the day. And so to get to connect with your other fellow teachers or coworkers, it can be so valuable because all day long you're kind of siloed into your classroom or you're siloed into your office as an administrator. Yeah. And so getting to connect is not something that our culture often acknowledges is important, but I think that it really is. And getting to slow down. We're in this culture too in America where there's this like focus on productivity and go, 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 but to slow down can actually propel us forward if you use that tool effectively.
Any same question to you?
Always, and I learned this like really through going from the absolute floppiest, worst flying trapeze artists on the planet to being among like some of the best, was that you have to see the desired outcome that you want and then mirror people who are doing it the way that you want to be doing it. That's first. Like, see the results that you want and reverse engineer all the hard work and focus and calm and discipline that it requires. Like, at the end of the day, there's no shortcut for that, right? Like, no matter if you're, you need to be able to talk to people. Like Nancy just asked me if we're SEL trained. No, not yet. I've been immersing myself for the last 2 years. I've read a countless number of Castle docs. I've thrown research reports into ChatGPT and asked it to summarize it for me so that I could, try to get the talking points and understand the case studies. But when Dr. Judy showed up through our hello inbox and said, I see what you're doing, I see you. This is what I've learned with foster kids and tough relationships with kids and really like unbearable to hear situations. You take help from people, you listen to them, you mirror their strategies, and so there's no silver bullet. I think I've been really successful in my career because I try to take in a little bit from everyone, and then I try to pass that to the people below me. Like, I'd imagine that for educators who are all kind of stuck in the weeds and like working as hard as they can, spinning their wheels as fast as they can, sometimes going maybe and helping that young teacher on the team, the new person, you're going to learn more from their experience the way I did from Mr. Scotty G's young man Axel, who told me, hey, as a new employee, like, I don't even know that you had to sign up for your business online, right? I took him for lunch. That's how I learned that. Like, try to build the people below you as much as you are seeking the information from those above you. And that's really where I think clarity, calm, and like a professional wellness for me used to come from.
Down as far as implementing some of that social emotional learning for the youth or for the parents maybe down the line.
Influential. We're launching a early adolescent program that's starting next week. And then during the school year, we'll be trying to help solve this crisis of the preschool prison to pipeline so that kids who do get labeled as defiant, primarily young people, children of color, They'll have a place to go. Our new nonprofit Adventure Lines is likely going to be funding a lot of those kids' tuition through the program. We're all committing to doing continuing education, like there's National University. We've partnered with AHA SB and had a really great partnership with them, but that's just the beginning. We are, one of the interesting things about our company is like we're a flat organization for the most part. Cameron just joined us a few months ago, but he ran a parkour business for 15 years. We've all been using, in an unrefined way, these lessons of teaching grit and resilience and applications for grit and resilience. But we're also probably going to bring in outside thought leaders too, like Judy will come in, and while we're working with the kids, she'll be working with the parents and the kids, and we'll have it as a mixed format of classroom environment and then experiential learning. When we do the field trip programs, a lot of times we've worked with when we do corporate events, we work with this local thought leader. She's amazing, by the way. Her name's Megan Carr. She's one of those impressive pedigrees I've ever seen. So our Dr. Eric Zackrinson from UCSB, he's come in and led, here's leadership training that I teach in my classroom, and while these guys are out there giving you a lab lesson on it, I'm gonna moderate the roundtable discussions. But I think what's beautiful about our approach right now, even though it is kind of slightly more layman than we'd like it to be, is we're filling a gap that sometimes standardized curriculum can. We had a kid this week, and our program naturally lends itself that way. There was a little girl who came all week, didn't accomplish her goal. She came back on Sunday morning, finally got her legs up on the bar. The parents sent her up for an extra class. That kid did not quit. She wanted it so badly, and she left there with a free t-shirt because I was proud of her and a big smile on her face. And our goal is ultimately just to help you guys create more well-adjusted children. But yeah, we're looking for as many sort of resources as we can, but we can't boil the ocean all at once. So just trying to take a small step in becoming more accredited in a space that has no governing body and has really very little to no accreditation. We're trying to set the industry standard, and we're grateful to have Santa Barbara as a community that's been receptive to an outside-of-the-box idea.
And be a part of an organization.
I've seen so much SEL curriculum come and go, and this way and that. And it's one thing I've liked about AHA over the years is that there's a very organic nature to the SEL, and I think there's a place for both, but what Santa Barbara Trapeze is doing is it's more about identifying where what they do now can be then, for schools, in my view, then say there's a field trip. What is the teacher to then take back to the classroom and use those experiences with kids, both in a structured way, but with the kids who are having trouble behaviorally, using that language and helping them drive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to see you all change to fit into an SEL.
No, totally. And I usually don't mention this out the gates, but there's a mother of one of my students for the last 10, 15 years since I was in my early 20s. Her name's Dr. Amy Margulis, and she runs the Brain Behavior and Environment Lab at Columbia University. And what we're working on is creating an NIH grant, or applying for one, so that we can get research that proves that getting kids on a flying trapeze or doing parkour at lunchtime helps them learn the rest of the day. We work with Knox School where all those kids are exceptionally brilliant and gifted, but they all kind of have their own nuances, whether it's cognitive or physical or social or whatnot. And then we get told by parents all the time that my little boy has never been able to be physically fit before. He's not comfortable working out because usually it's a competitive or a contact environment, and he's 11 years old and 6 foot tall, and not 6 foot tall, but 5'6" taller than me, and he's never been able to be a physically confident or active young man. And I remember Fran and I were sitting there and watching him and watching his sense of pride. And so it's a mix. I really want to be legitimate. I think that what we're doing is something that we'll be able to scale, not just in Region 8 under Ernesto Duran we're working with, but also maybe around the country. Work in key markets and key cities where certain marginalized communities could really use a out of your head and into your body experience. So We have a lot of work to do, and we're trying to move as fast as we can.
Unlike how this
benefited the most from in the gym that I owned in Houston was, although we were a movement-centered organization, the stillness element at the end of our classes, where we got all of our students to kind of sit down and appreciate, not like appreciate the movements that they just did in all of the classes, but also learn how to be still. And a lot of slowing down, self-reflection, self-correction has been talked about in certain ways, and it's like, what are the tools for those things? And in my personal experience, after I closed my gym in Houston when the pandemic started, I came to Santa Barbara to study with a monk for a few years. And I had already been doing yoga for about 20 years, but the formal education that I got by studying directly with a Vedic monk gave me more tools and language around what I was doing to help impart those.
Who's here today will get like 10 to start for the year, and we hope that you take advantage of it. This is our life's work. This is always what I wanted to do. I was making a damn fortune selling software, and twice I had to leave my job and go run away to New Zealand to get big brother and sister over here to help me get my emotional wellness back to life. It's not what you make, it's how you feel every day, and it's the reward that you get from knowing that you're making a difference. And for the first time in my 39 years of life, I know that we're doing that. And so thank you all for coming, and I hope everyone's enjoying their meal, and thank you so much.
Thank you.